Buenos días. Estoy acá para hablar acerca de transformación digital en industria, pero mi español no es tan bueno cuanto inglés, so I'm going to change to the English language so that perhaps you can understand me a bit more, okay? Thank you for coming. This is a kind of presentation I have done in many places, and it's an honor to be here. I wish to thank Roberto, Marco, Diego, which is not here, but he will come and has taken me to many parts of Guatemala and my host here. And I wish to begin by saying that I work for the Brazilian Development Bank, which is a bank which has industries as customers. Many of the companies you see in the exposition upstairs are my customers. I have visited their factories. They have taken financing from the bank where I work. And this work began in 2016 when I met a guy from industry from Germany, Christoph Ebert. We met each other during the Requirements Engineering Conference in China. And there we organized a panel, a discussion panel, on what would be interesting for industry in the next coming years. And our discussion was helped by the panel participants. Intel was there, Nokia was there, many other companies were there. And we identified digital transformation as one big trend. And since then, we started our research on this subject, and this led to the publication of a paper in IEEE Software magazine last year, and we keep doing our research on this subject. And this is an interesting subject for my customers in Brazil as well, which are implementing digital transformations in their companies, okay? So I hope to show you a bit more about this subject. But before beginning, I must say that I also have a second affiliation. Marco hasn't said that, but I'm also a distinguished visitor of the IEEE in a way that whenever there is a conference like this, the organizers can invite me to come and to give talks on different subjects and so on. In Latin America, I think there are 8 distinguished visitors of the Computer Society. I'm one of them. And my background is from industry, so I'm going to provide you with an industry perspective of what is digital transformation, okay? So the sponsorship of this talk is mostly by the Computer Society, but we have had a lot of support from Region 9 also, and moreover from Guatemala section, which together made my coming here from Brazil possible, okay? So I wish to thank you, all those. And I'm here also because my company allows me to do this kind of volunteering work. I'm on leave of absence from my normal activities, and I'm here to share a bit of my knowledge on this subject. There, I am a kind of evangelist on digital transformation. I share my knowledge with people in the company, and I will show you during the talk part of what we are doing at the bank as well. As much as I'm going to show you some case studies on companies which are implementing digital transformation in industry, and I hope this can be useful for you also, okay? Marco has already mentioned my background, I will skip that. So the program here is to let you know or to share with you what is digital transformation, what we mean by digital transformation nowadays, and why companies are doing digital transformation at home, who is doing that, and where is it's happening, okay? And how to do digital transformation at your companies also. I will provide you with some tools, and you have access to my presentation with many other references so that if you wish to follow this path, then the presentation and even myself, we are available to help you. And towards the end, I will discuss with you a bit of digital transformation, productivity, and also software engineering and requirements engineering, which are important subjects on this area, okay? And at the end, I will share with you some summary and takeaways. So that's the plan. I usually begin this talk with a challenge to the audience because many people believe that digital transformation is something that results from connecting your computers to the mains power and from connecting your computers to the internet, for instance, or to a digital mean, in a way that you can transform something which is in the analog or the real world in something that is in the digital world. And when I began this research, I shared this with my boss at the company, at the bank, and he thought, well, do you mean making digital copies of printed documents? Well, give it up. This is not valuable to anyone. So I had to share with him that digital transformation is much more than taking something from the real world and transforming it into a digital thing. So I had to discuss with him that there is a lot of technology involved, indeed, but the main part of this has to do with people, what we call software power. The role of people and companies, businesses like yours in the process. So that if you use some transformation means to transform something in the real world with the help of technology carried out by people, then maybe you can reach the final goal, which is to generate value for customers, for businesses, and for society. So what convinced my boss that this is worthwhile studying and implementing at the company were the examples I showed him. So now I wish to show you some examples which are really interesting. And let's see if the internet here will work. There are many examples of these. I never know how to. Okay. So one example of this kind of transformation is happening in China, to my surprise. I would expect that most of the examples of digital transformation would come from So here you can see one warehouse at the Alibaba company in China. You may have heard this video, but it is interesting to see that the whole warehouse is run without anyone in there. They use robots like those small blue things there, which are used to pick up components or products on the shelves, to raise them, and to take these products to some selection place in which the product will be dispatched to the end customers, and in a way that almost no one is involved. So this company has done a great job in doing digital transformation at home by means of using robots in their case. And of course, they are not only robots. Sometimes companies will use artificial intelligence. Sometimes companies will use drones. And sometimes companies will change their business models to implement digital transformation. So what's important here is that in many cases, companies are using digital transformation to change the way they do business, and in this way generate value for customers, okay? So that's what we mean by digital transformation, and that's why my research has been done on this subject, right? We'll show many other examples on what is digital transformation, but that's the one I think is most illustrative, what is being done in industry. In this case, in companies like Amazon and so on. So by digital transformation, we mean the adoption of those disruptive technologies like robots to increase productivity, to increase value generation, and for governments, it is used to increase welfare, to improve welfare in society, okay? So this is a result of orchestrating the technologies and the companies in a way that they generate new value. And of course, you have to transform something from analog to digital, but you also have to transform your processes from discrete to continuous. For instance, when you do your operations in your warehouse using persons, you pick your products one by one. It will be a discrete process. But when you use robots like that example I showed you, the process will be continuous all the time. It won't stop. It will work 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. So it became a continuous process because of the use of technology, okay? And not only that, but the process became customer-oriented. There was a focus on the customer so that a product will not be picked up on the shelves unless a customer has ordered that product. So it is the customer who drives the process and not the company anymore. But that's not the whole story. This has led people as well to change, and to change in ways as to abandon their individual thinking to think in a strategic way. The people who changed Alibaba and changed Amazon to use this kind of equipment thought that they had to reorganize the entire process, perform some strategic planning, and only then they started the implementation of the transformation. And for doing that, you have to know the whole business and you have to have an integrated view of everything. Otherwise, when you put things together, they won't work together in a way that makes sense. And there is a point here also that sometimes you have to give up ownership and to use the assets in an access-based way. I will give you an example of this in a few minutes. And finally, it's important to make an integration of your supply chain with your customers in a way as to create a business ecosystem. Not anymore, companies work alone. They see the whole thing in an integrated way in the form of an ecosystem. I will give you some examples, okay? But here are some examples of companies who have done their business in an access-based way. I wish here to provide some data to you, and perhaps you can identify which companies are those. For instance, the first company is in the retail business. It was founded in 1993, and the main competitor is eBay. It has half of the retail business in the United States, and it has 5% of the whole retail business in the United States, digital and real. Which company is that? Can you see it? It's very easy. I have mentioned it already. It's Amazon, right? Why it's an access-based business? Because Amazon doesn't have physical shops. Amazon sells goods to all of you probably using virtual facilities. They don't have to open a shop at the street to sell you a new product, okay? There is also a company in what is called the hospitality business, which hosts people for vacation, for instance. This is a newer company. It was created in 2008. It's also an American company, has 15% of the hospitality business, and already 3% of the whole hospitality business, including those like hotels like this one. Which company is that? Airbnb, thank you so much. You could have said Booking also, but Airbnb has a larger market share. Okay, it's a leadership company. And again, this company, they offer you hosting, but they don't have any hotel. They don't have any facility of their own. they are renting other people's places, okay? So they left the ownership business and became an access-based business because what they sell you is the access to the properties of other people, okay? So they are selling access. Another example, this is very easy, but may not you know it. It's new here in Guatemala, as far as I know. It's in the transportation sector. It's a company founded in 1999. In the United States, they have 67% of the whole market. And the main competitor is Lyft. Which company is that? It's very easy also as well. It's Uber. Okay? You see that companies are being funded in this access-based business. And again, in the case of Uber, what they provide you is access to a vehicle, to a car, which is not Uber's. It's the driver's car, okay? So again, they are changing the way taxis work so as to give you access to something which allows you to do what you want without having the property of that. And finally, an example in Brazil, which is my country, it's in the banking sector. The banking sector there is very strong. This company was founded in 2013. It has 54% of the whole business, digital banking business in Brazil. It already has 2.5% of the whole banking sector. They have more than 2 million bank accounts, and they have already a main competitor which has almost 1 million bank accounts. You surely do not know this company, but it is NU Bank. And it was founded just 5 years ago. This is amazing because one company which was founded 4 years ago and which has already 2.5% of the whole market is quite an achievement. And in Brazil, there are more downloads of the NU app in cell phones than there is of Uber, Airbnb, and Amazon together. So that's an amazing achievement as well. They are taking the market in a very accelerated way, and in the end, they may kill the traditional banks like you have here, for instance, Banco Industrial, Banco, I think, Produ America, I think it's the name of the bank here in Guatemala. These banks, which have a physical branch, they may not exist anymore in a few years because of these companies. But these companies are a bit different from what I meant in the previous slides because they were born digitally. Amazon was created as a company to sell books, and then it kept growing to sell anything else. But Airbnb, Uber, and NU Bank, they have been all born digital, okay? So they haven't passed the digital transformation like a traditional company, which may be your case. So what I am going to show you, what are the differences between a entirely digital company and one that follows the path of transformation, okay? So let's move ahead. So what's going on is that there is a main source of emerging value. In the case of access-based business, the point is that the companies don't own anymore the properties they are offering to the population, okay? And in order to do that, there must be collaboration. Uber must collaborate with the drivers, otherwise there won't be any service provided. And there is a so-called combinatorial effects because, for instance, in the case of Uber, you wouldn't have the service if all the drivers hadn't agreed to join the Uber platform. Uber platform is what aggregates the service provided by all the drivers, okay? So this is the combinatorial effect. It's a combination of the driving capability of all those drivers, okay? But not only that, because Uber, for instance, it maximizes the route of the drivers, it uses optimization software. It can make the life of the drivers easier as well, because the driver will not be left on the streets trying to find someone to take home. It will already find someone to take using the Uber app, okay? So this is the maximization of value generation. It is provided by software and provided by apps on your phone or elsewhere in a way that makes sense. So this is a complete migration of technologies to digital platforms. And this is a very huge market for service providers. There is a whole market of companies offering services of digital transformation. And the size of this market was estimated by the World Economic Forum in $100 trillion in 2007. It's huge. And many of existing companies haven't begun this digital transformation process yet, okay? And worse than that, for some companies who have already started, there is some prediction saying that many of the existing jobs will not exist anymore in 10 years. For instance, those guys who work for Banco Industrial here in their branches, if a bank like Nubank takes the whole market, they will lose their jobs. So they will have to find different jobs in order to do different things. So that's a challenge because it's a huge number of workers. In this case, the forecast is 375 million people, okay? So this changes society and it changes the way the market is organized. So I'm going to show you what's going on with people who is involved in this digital transformation, with the challenges as well, and the opportunities companies and governments have by doing digital transformation in their places. This is a very interesting subject for governments as well, because not only a company can become digital, a government like the Guatemala government can make an effort to digitalize all their services. And I know you may be skeptical here, but there are some examples of success. And what these governments wish to do is to generate more innovation, to improve the education system, to strengthen data protection, security, and privacy so that your data will not be used in a way that you haven't authorized, okay? And not only that, but they wish to obtain economic benefits as well, to increase income generation, to improve productivity. Those are our economic concerns, to improve value addition and so on. The point is that it's not easy to mix these investments, the use of the workforce, the innovation capability, and the governance of the governance of the whole thing. So in order to plan these efforts, many governments that have written digital transformation policy documents. The German government has written it, one. The Chinese government has written one. The Brazilian government has written one. And these are important documents, but we have already cases of failure and success. One example of case of failure. The Australian government made an attempt to make all their services digital. It was a huge failure. They spent almost billions of dollars to make their services digital, and they failed. So the Congress there is demanding the people who implemented this to explain how they failed and to correct their way in a way that it can make sense. On the other hand, a small country in Europe, which is called Estonia, has succeeded in digitalize everything. They have voting cards, they have passports, they have appointments with doctors scheduled in a digital way. Even in Brazil, we have done some steps. For instance, my driver's license is in my cell phone nowadays. And if policy stops me on the streets, I can show them my driver's license in the phone. And that one will be accepted as much as the printed one I keep carrying in my wallet, okay? So in Brazil, we have done small steps towards digital transformation, but that's not enough. I would wish to make an appointment with my doctor by arranging it through the internet, and that's not possible anymore. The health service is not integrated I'm not sure if my data will be kept private by the doctors there. So there are many issues that the Brazilian government has to address. But this talk is not about this. This talk about industry, okay? I mentioned government here because there is an interface of government and industries which is relevant. Because if your government is targeting digital transformation, maybe your company will have to adapt to that effort as well, okay? But for companies, there are many advantages and many things that can be achieved, like to enter into new markets, to integrate, to better integrate the value chain, to ensure that your company will be able to adapt to a new situation. That's adaptability assurance. And if the companies wish to digitalize everything, they will have to redesign products and services. They have to adopt new business models in which everything is considered. They will have to have closer interactions with suppliers and so on, partnerships with customers, okay? So for governments, the population will have better accessibility to public services, and the quality of these services is expected to improve. This is not done for free. And in fact, it is a lot difficult if you try to implement that in your company. So many companies, they don't have a digital transformation strategy. They don't have focus on digital transformation. And worse, in some cases, they don't see the return on investment for doing digital transformation. So they have to clear this out in order to begin with. And in many cases, the company itself is so complex that it has to be restructured first. The computer infrastructure is so complex, they sometimes need to get rid of some of it and use a third party. And in some cases, they have to buy new equipment, okay? I'll mention some equipment and some other technologies later on in this talk. And most companies are not prepared to do with customer data with privacy and with security, which is a government demand nowadays. In Europe, in Brazil, in the United States, companies are obliged to implement security and data protection policies, okay? And in most cases, when a company begins the digitalization effort, then there is a perception that the digital business will kill the traditional one. So this is called the innovator's dilemma. If you innovate in order to produce a digital business, maybe you kill your company and you should take the risk if you wish to go ahead. Outside the company, there is not enough labor force. You won't find many people with the skills to implement digital transformation in your company. There may be lacking or insufficient infrastructure. For instance, if you don't have a 4G or 5G network in your place, it will be impossible to integrate with digital value chains. So communications infrastructure is essential. The regulation may have to be changed. There is no access to funding in most cases, although in Brazil I work for a company which finances digital transformation in the industry, and that's not a problem there. But small and medium-sized companies don't have access to this funding, and so that's a challenge. And in many cases, people don't see the value of digital transformation. So they have to have a clear vision of what is valuable. And this begins by providing a customer or a user orientation to your company. Your company must allow the products to be customizable, and they should be usable in ways that they are not today. Your services must be simple to use. They should be available. And they should be differentiated from the concurrency so that new customers will wish to buy your products. And moreover, you should provide to your customers a unique experience. I mentioned Booking and Airbnb before because I have some bad experience with Booking when I tried to rent a property which was not in a hotel. It was a private property. And in that case, my feeling was that I were not being treated in a unique way. Booking couldn't convince me that I was a unique customer and treated me in the way I expected. But Airbnb has done that almost all the time. So for products, specifically for software products, those products should be useful, should be usable, people should be able to find them, they should be desirable, and they should be accessible, and customers should value them. In the software business, this is what we call nowadays user experience. You should implement a user experience in your company so that you can provide to your customers a differentiated offer, okay? And in terms of the company itself, there are many objectives. You may wish to obtain greater market penetration. You may wish to have more revenue. You may wish to launch your products in a timely way. And you may wish to allocate your resources in a different way, and so on and so forth. So for companies, those are the benefits. I will skip this because sometimes I speak to a more academic audience. In that case, it's important to explain why this digital transformation movement began in the 70s and in the 80s and so on. But I will skip this and show you another example. This is the example of Telefónica in Brazil. They have done a lot of digital transformation there, and they have done that both in Brazil and Spain. And I mention this because they have published these experiences in newspapers and journals and have released the reports. And then I had access to all of what they are doing. They launched in some years before one software robot called Vivi. You would be able to access Vivi through the internet using their portal, or you would be able to access Vivi using Facebook. And there you could formulate questions so that Vivi could answer for you without any human intervention, okay? That was regarded as a great success at Telefónica, and they figured out that the interface would not necessarily be only in textual format. So they launched the Aura, which is a similar robot, but which takes your interaction with voice also. And using voice, you can use it in your phone. And using your phone, you have access using text, using voice everywhere, and so on. And they have done that using implementing software, which we call Agile, a method which is called Agile Squads model, in which they create autonomous teams which have a lot of independency, autonomy, and creativity. And these teams are the ones which have developed these software robots. And not only that, they have used some artificial intelligence tools. In their case, I know they are using Microsoft's tools like the BOTS framework, which is meant to develop software robots, and the Lewis tool, which is a natural language interface for developing these kinds of tools. And they have also hosted in their facilities some startups, so that what is being developed in those startups can be used or not by Telefónica in their effort, okay? And the results are impressive. They have evaluated Vivi in a way that they saw that 94% of the requests were solved without any human intervention, all by the software, okay? And they have also, because they now have this interface, seeing that they don't need so much call centers anymore. So in Brazil, they cut their call centers in half, and they, because of that, reduced their cost in $300 million, okay? And moreover, because people is now willing to take their bills through the internet and not in a printed way, they have also cut their costs in printing bills, and they're sending bills through the courier, and that is amount of like $150 million a year. So in their effort, and that's published in Brazilian newspapers, in each year they have been saving at least almost $500 million because of their digital transformation there. That's an impressive number, and that's why Telefónica keeps investing on this effort and so on. So maybe you are not in the telecommunication business, maybe you are in other segments. So let me give you another example in Brazilian hospitals, okay? There we have two hospitals, Samaritano and Sírio-Libanês. They have implemented what we call electronic health, records, health records, in a way that everything related to a patient is kept somewhere in a protected way, in a way to keep the history of that patient with the hospital. And they have been able to do that by the implementation of enterprise resource planning software at the hospital, which are particular to the hospital sector. Not only that, but some hospitals, for instance, Samaritano Hospital, they have used automated medicine distribution systems in a way that the system will pick up the medicine in their stock and using a network of pipes will deliver the medicine to the patient bed so that there is no human intervention in this process. And of course, if the software is correct, there will be no mistake. Every person will take the medicine it is expected to be taken at the time it should be taking that medicine. And they have done that with software provided by Philips. They have done that with some robots which are of Da Vinci's brain. They are specific robots. They are not like the ABB robots upstairs because they are more delicate. They are like human arms and with things to take the instruments at the end. And they have used some logistics solutions from some Swiss company. So I will skip the rest of it because the last example perhaps is most interesting to you, which probably are all in industry. The case of Volkswagen is really impressive as well. Volkswagen is in Brazil like the beginning of the 19th century, and they have factories there. They have factories in Germany and many other places in the world. And they have also made many attempts to implement digital transformation at home. And the problem with digital transformation in the automotive sector, you may guess it, is the complexity of the product. One car may have like 120 or more sensors embedded in the vehicle. And the software which is on board nowadays may allow the company to have access to the battery of your car from their headquarters. And in some cases, they are now putting in the market some autonomous vehicles which they can control from their headquarters as well or from your cell phone. And this will be available in a few years in the market. So how they are doing this? Which technology allows them to have so complex software which reaches hundreds of millions of lines of code? This looks like the aviation industry in terms of complexity, okay? Because of the needs of integration with your car, with their headquarters, with the supply chain, with the adoption of many different technologies, mechanics, electronics, and many others, okay? So it's really challenging. And what they have done is to integrate with their suppliers using information systems. They have used many different communication solutions like RFID. They have used the Internet of Things. They have used usual telecommunication networks and so on. And they have used many different kinds of software, enterprise resource planning, production planning, and many others in order to run their factories. And they are doing this with many different suppliers. For instance, they have mechatronic systems provided by Aptiv, Denso, Magnum, Mahon, Schaffer, and so on. And they have infotainment systems from Bosch, from Continental, and some others, okay? So this infotainment is what you see on your front. But it is completely integrated. If you wish to have access to the manual of the car, you just say, please lead me to page 100 of the manual so that I can read a bit more about the battery. So it will understand you, because nowadays this software integrated with human natural language understanding things. And even with the headquarters, with the cars already connected to some network, okay? And this is done using 4G or 5G networks which they expected to be available in Europe, in Brazil, in the United States, here, and so on and so forth. Just to give you an example of a way of making cars nowadays. Let me see if I can get this right. No? I have here a video concerning how Volkswagen manufactures their cars nowadays, and I will try to show you. Just a minute, let me see if I can change it. It's always difficult for me to deal with this video because I thought it would be presented in an automated way, but not always. Sorry about that. No? Oh? I think I know. Yeah. Let's see how Volkswagen is making their cars nowadays. This is a car which is already in the market.
Are changing the world. They're also making the cars manufactured by the Volkswagen Group more efficient, safer, and more customer-friendly. The nature of car manufacturing is also changing in a similar way. In fact, the next batch of innovations is so extraordinary that experts are already declaring the dawn of a new industrial era.
Here.
Industry 4.0.
Robots here, ABB1.
So what does manufacturing look like today? Traditional car production involving hundreds of identical vehicles lined up
factory
in a
in
row
Germany.
no longer exists. The options
Integration
available to
with people.
customers are now so vast that
There's
each
so
car
many
becomes
parts,
a
you see.
unique and individual object.
Some is handmade.
Cars are now manufactured to order.
All of
Data makes
ABB
its way from
robots.
the customer's order to the Volkswagen Group's systems and then to each individual section of production.
The process is all known and mapped.
A car consists of many thousands
They'll
of individual
mold the
parts.
whole car using their
The press shop processes blanks
capital
for the
goods.
bodywork.
And
In
everywhere
the
you
body
see
shop,
robots.
The car is baptized. In other words, it's given an
Embedded
RFID
electronics
tag that can
everywhere.
track it
This
by
is a
radio
tag.
frequency.
That's what you have
This
seen.
establishes which car body belongs to which customer order.
It's a production line, totally integrated.
The paint shop also receives information from the system world.
Painting system. Quality
In
assurance.
sequencing storage, the cars are placed in an optimal order for assembly.
Logistics to move a car from one place to
From
another
here,
one.
information is transmitted to suppliers and pre-assembly as to which part is required.
It will move the car from one part of the company to the other one.
In final assembly, the finished car emerges.
That's the most important part. Should I run it again with a lower volume or not? Do you wish to watch it again? Okay. The point is here is that would you believe that this factory in Brazil, it's almost the same as the German one they have. This one is their German factory, but we have factories in Brazil precisely like that one, okay? And that's the amazing point. Digital transformation allows you to standardize your production process and make it equal all over the world.
New technologies are changing the world. They're also making the cars manufactured by the Volkswagen Group more efficient, safer, and more customer-friendly. The nature of car manufacturing is also
When I
changing
was in
a
Mexico
similar way.
last year, they had known already
In
all
fact,
of this.
the
They have
next batch of
factories there
innovations
like
is
those
so
as well.
extraordinary that experts are already declaring the dawn of a new industrial era, Industry 4.0. So what does manufacturing look like today? Traditional car production involving hundreds of identical vehicles lined
But
up in a
really,
row
to be
no
honest,
longer
that is the
exists.
German factory.
The options available to customers are now so vast that each car becomes a unique and individual object. Cars are now manufactured to order.
The
Data makes
repetitive
its way
part
from
is
the
all done
customer's
by
order to the
robots.
Volkswagen Group's systems, and then to each individual section of production.
And the production process is completely mapped
A car
and
consists
understood.
of many thousands of individual parts. The press shop processes blanks for the bodywork. In the body shop, the car is baptized.
That's
In other words, it's given
an
an
RFID
that
tag.
can track it via
Each
radio
car has
frequency.
its own, and each
This
part of the car
establishes
has
which
its
car
own
body
as well.
belongs to which customer order. The paint shop also receives information from the system world. In sequencing storage, the cars are placed in an optimal order for assembly. From here, information is transmitted to suppliers and pre-assembly as to which part is required when and where. In final assembly, the finished car emerges.
Well, that's what I wanted to show you, that there are examples in many different industry segments, and in each of those, you have different evaluation metrics. And in the case of Telefonica, they published what they have achieved in terms of American dollars. In the case of Volkswagen, they haven't published those statistics already, but what I know is that they have achieved a 30% productivity gain in the Brazilian factories. So that they must have increased the profit margin of the company probably in 2 or 3 times because of their productivity gains there. And that was amazing to happen. And because they are so happy with the results there, they are now creating a digitalization unit in their company and a new business model, business department there in Brazil, and they already have that in Germany, in a way that they can create new products and digitalize their products. For instance, in Brazil, they have developed one truck. That would be standard, but this truck is completely electric, and it is designed with Brazilian suppliers as well. I think in previous years, WEG was here at this conference with a stand. They provide control systems and electrical distribution systems, automation systems, including for their automotive industry. And this completely electric vehicle Volkswagen is developing in Brazil. They have already sold 5,000 of those to our main beer manufacturer to deliver beer to shops and so on, is done together with WEG. Okay, that's the integration I meant to you. The supply chain and the design chain is integrated in a way that they can produce a unique product, and that product may make sense, okay? So I have said that already, that companies, they have customized their services, their products, they have simplified their services, provided new offerings. But one important thing that is happening is that the relationship with customers has changed. For instance, I mentioned that Volkswagen has sold already this truck, 5,000 of those trucks. And in fact, they have developed this truck with Ambev, which is our main beer producer, because Ambev wishes to reduce the level of pollution in their delivery. So they wish to be more environmentally friendly. And because Ambev has this request, then Volkswagen started developing one truck for this need. And they saw competence in Brazil to do that. So the customers need these positive experiences which are provided by the manufacturer's sentiments. They wish convenience, like that pollution reduction requirement. They wish comfort, they wish well-being, and so on and so forth. And in relation to the suppliers, the relationship has to change as well. Because Volkswagen in the past, it would design the complete vehicle in their headquarters in Germany. And because they saw some competence with Brazilian engineers there, they now are developing a truck there in Brazil, which is electrical. So it won't take any fuel, just the need to put charge in the battery, okay? And this provides a lot of pressure because other companies are doing the same. Mercedes-Benz in Brazil is also investing in their factories there to provide new trucks and in a way that they can compete with Volkswagen there, okay? And this provides a different and competitive environment in which companies wish to qualify their offer, they wish to simplify their offer, they wish to digitalize everything they want, and finally they wish to provide innovative products. There is some statistic provided by the PricewaterhouseCoopers company, a consulting company, in 2017, showing that many companies feel that they will have a return on investment on their digitalization efforts in 2 years, more than half of the companies, okay? So probably Volkswagen will invest some in the development of that truck, and it will return in 2 years because already they have sold 5,000 of those. It will be easy, just manufacture, deliver, and have the return almost immediately. And of course, this depends on the business market your company is in. In the construction center, the perception is more gain. But in the aerospace business, because many of their businesses are already digitalized, they don't see so much gain there. In order to make a digital company, you will start from a past environment in which the strategy was centered in the product. There was an exclusivity focus in some products, and in particularly marketing actions. And there would be a physical supply chain, the company would be divided into silos, and there would be a fragmented environment with these corporate projects. But nowadays, because this is now changing, companies are focusing on user experience, the use of design thinking to develop new products, and to co-create products with suppliers, with the customers, and so on. Moreover, there is some agile collaboration happening in multidisciplinary teams so that they could deliver what is expected in smaller time. There is some exploitation of network effects by connecting companies together in a digital environment, and the creation of ecosystems. The supply parts ecosystem for the automotive sector in Brazil is quite strong, and it's completely integrated with the Argentinian one. So companies in Brazil buy auto parts. In Argentina, take to Brazil, put together, deliver the whole vehicle to the whole population, and even export it. And finally, there is a need to eliminate intermediates in this process, okay? So that your product will be delivered to the final customer. One famous company which does that is Dell, the American manufacturer of computers, which allow you to buy a computer from their site and then you have it delivered at your home. So many companies, in order to make this digitalization effort, they operate in dual mode. They keep their business running, like Volkswagen, it continues to produce traditional cars. but it's now running a disruptive unit so that in that place they will innovate, they will take the risk, they will make things differently. And because it's isolated, then the risk is not so big and may not compromise the whole company, okay? And the place of doing things is changing also, not only in-house, but by relying on buying, doing partnership, using incubators, business accelerators, or even investments in other companies. So companies are using design thinking to do that, using big data analytics, using systems engineering to map value flows, and to use lean or agile development methods to deliver software particularly. And this is what we call lean transformation model. It's interesting to see that this sounds like IT stuff. But for instance, the bank where I work is organizing its business teams like that in an agile model as well. And in those teams, there is no IT specialist because at my company, they think they can allow these teams to develop new products. Here I had some material related to design thinking and the cycle of development of new products, but I'll go very fast here. The point here is that you need a clear need from your customer to develop a new product, like that truck made by Ford Bev, by Volkswagen. You need to do research, otherwise your project will fail. So that if you have done research, you get some insight. And having insight, you do some brainstorming. And having done some brainstorming, so you can write some hypotheses. For instance, the level of pollution generated by the trucks will go down. And then once you have written that hypothesis, you build the truck. And you create a new product. And then you measure, get data, and then learn what you have reached. And if the level of production in the case of the truck is acceptable, then you can go into mass production, serial production, okay? So this is a process which many IT teams use. It's a kind of cycle, but it begins by trying to develop in a fast way a product. And if it meets the customer demand, then you can stop. But if it doesn't, then you make the whole cycle once again and once again and once again until you have reached a minimal viable product which satisfies your customer needs. I'm almost finishing. There are many examples of technology. I won't go into this detail here at this talk. But the point here that even though you can use a lot of technology, microelectronics, hardware, software, put people in the process, using new telecommunication systems, microelectronics, precision mechanics, what is really important is the strategy of your company, is the way you think the whole process so as to deliver this new value your customer is expecting, okay? Just one example of digital transformation in a different business. At my company, we have some requirements like reliability, security, privacy. Our services should be affordable. People should use banking systems through different locations like a cell phone, through the internet, in an automated transaction machine, at the branch as well. And the banks have to comply with legal requirements, and they have to provide an improved customer experience. At the banking sector, these are the requirements. What we have done? We have done open banking, which is to publish the interfaces of our systems in the internet so that other banks could integrate their systems with ours. For instance, Banco Industrial here is a partner of ours. It could well integrate their systems to ours because our interfaces are known. They're in the internet. We have done some co-development using a garage there at our office in which startup companies go. We have done some machine-to-machine implementation of transactions so that credit can be approved in some seconds only already. And we have created some new currency called the BNDES token, which is based on blockchain and on the Ethereum platform for digital currencies. And finally, we have invested in some fintech support so that fintechs can offer their services in the Brazilian market, okay? So that's the reality in the banking sector. And in order to supply software for banks, we have to do a lot of software and requirements engineering. But the problem here is that the technologies, the methods, and the tools the software engineers nowadays know is not enough to deliver that kind of transformation. So there is a need to change the software engineering methods and techniques, for example, to use more platform as a service, to use develop and operate methodologies, DevOps, and many other techniques which make the people who are behind this effort a lot more important than they were before. So these guys must have many new skills and new capabilities, for instance, to be able to generate insight, to be creative, to have a good memory, to present themselves in reasonable ways, to be organized, and mainly to develop relationship and mostly trust with the customers, okay? So I'm finishing now, and that's, for me, the most important part of the whole transformation process. The people who is carrying out those processes have to have new capabilities, skills, and that's why I keep giving this talk everywhere, because it's important to make this point and convince people to change their minds. So even for managers, there are some challenges, and for corporate leaders, because managers cannot behave in a command and control way anymore. They shouldn't give orders and their team obey, because that's not the way new products, innovative products are developed anymore. On the other hand, they should allow their teams to have a participatory behavior, and they should allow new leadership to raise in their teams, okay? And the corporate leaders, they should stimulate, direct, and allow their teams to have a clear vision of the future so that everyone can follow, okay? So there are many techniques to do that, but the important thing is that everyone in this environment has to be willing to know something new. Everyone needs to be willing to learn all the time, to be able to learn new techniques, because new techniques, new technologies will appear, and then you should be prepared to use them. So this work was done using a mind map from a literature review. I discussed all this with Christoph, which is my partner in German. We wrote down this mind map and made some discussion. The paper is published in the IEEE software of last year. If you wish to have access to more details, you can have access to that paper or write me. And there are some good books also. One good book by Brian Fitzgerald on digitalization of business software businesses, and there's a good book on design thinking, the design thinking playbook, which many companies use nowadays to carry out this transformation process. With this, I wish to thank you for your patience and to be here.